Part 1. By the time Mara reached the end of the dirt road, the sky had turned the color of old bruises, purple, gray, and heavy with the promise of rain. Her shoes were thin, her coat thinner, and everything she owned fit inside a torn canvas bag slung over her shoulder. Each step toward the ranch felt like walking deeper into a decision she didn't want to name. She had rehearsed the words all afternoon, shaping them carefully so her voice wouldn't shake when the time came. Pride was a luxury she'd lost days ago. Tonight, she needed shelter more than dignity. The ranch stood alone against the horizon, white and silent, fences stretching like scars across the land. Smoke curled lazily from a crooked chimney, proof that someone was home. Mara hesitated at the gate, fingers tightening around the strap of her bag. She had been turned away before, by inns, by farms, by people who looked at her and saw trouble written all over her tired face. But the cold was already biting, and the storm clouds were lowering fast. If she didn't knock now, she might not make it through the night. The door opened after her second knock. The man who stood there filled the doorway like a shadow made solid. His face was marked by old burns that pulled his skin tight in places, his jaw rigid, his eyes sharp but wary. He didn't ask her name. He didn't smile. He simply waited. Mara swallowed hard and forced herself to meet his gaze. "I can work," she said, the words tumbling out faster than she intended. "Anything. Cleaning, cooking, animals, I know how. I just need a place to stay." She paused, then added the truth she could no longer hide behind. Just for a while. The rancher studied her in silence. Rain began to fall, soft at first, dotting the dust at her feet. Mara felt exposed, like something set out to be judged. She had come ready to offer everything, her labor, her time, even herself if it meant surviving one more week. The thought burned, but desperation had a way of quieting shame. "You alone?" he finally asked. His voice was rough, like it hadn't been used much. "Yes," she answered quickly. Too quickly. The word carried years of running, of doors closing behind her. Another long pause. The wind picked up, pushing cold air through her coat. She braced herself for the refusal she knew too well. Instead, the rancher stepped aside slightly. "You can sleep in the barn," he said. "There's hay, stays dry." Relief hit her so hard her knees nearly buckled. "Thank you," she breathed, meaning more than the words could carry. He didn't invite her inside. He didn't ask questions. He pointed toward the long, low structure behind the house and went back in, the door closing with a firm, final sound. Mara stood there for a moment, rain soaking her hair, letting the reality settle in. She had shelter. Not warmth, not comfort, but enough. The barn smelled of earth and animals, a scent that felt strangely grounding. She found a corner away from the stalls, spread her coat over the hay, and sat down slowly. Her body ached in places she tried not to think about. As thunder rolled in the distance, memories crept close, nights spent bargaining for safety, promises made and broken, hands that took more than they gave. She pressed her palms together, breathing through the familiar knot in her chest. She told herself this was different. Here, no one had demanded anything yet. Later, when the rain turned heavy, Mara heard the barn door creak open. She tensed instantly, every muscle ready to flee. The rancher stood there holding a lantern and a folded blanket. He didn't come closer than necessary. Part 2. Morning came without ceremony. No gentle sunrise, no birdsong to welcome the day, just the low groan of the wind and the distant sound of cattle shifting in their pens. Mara woke stiff and sore, hay clinging to her hair and clothes, but she was warm. The blanket had done its job. For a moment she lay still, listening, reminding herself where she was. The barn, the ranch, the scarred man with the quiet voice. Shelter that hadn't cost her anything yet. She folded the blanket carefully, as if that alone could repay the kindness behind it, and stepped outside. The land stretched endlessly, rough and unforgiving, yet honest. There was comfort in that. Nothing here pretended to be soft. She didn't wait to be told what to do. Survival had taught her better than that. She found a broom leaning against the barn wall and began sweeping, then moved on to filling water troughs, copying what she'd seen others do on farms long ago. Her hands knew work. Hard work had always been safer than idleness. Cole watched her from the porch without making his presence known. He'd expected her to leave at dawn like the others had, wanderers who took what little he offered and disappeared. But she stayed. She worked like she was afraid stopping would erase her right to be there. He recognized that look. He'd worn it himself once, back when the world still expected something from him. By mid-morning, he left a plate of food on a crate near the barn. No words, just eggs, bread, and coffee gone lukewarm. Mara stared at it for a long moment, suspicion warring with hunger. She ate slowly, carefully, as if rushing might offend some invisible rule. When she was done, she washed the plate and set it back exactly where she'd found it. Days settled into a pattern. Mara rose before the sun and worked until her muscles trembled. She patched fences, scrubbed floors, learned the temperament of the horses and the rhythm of the cattle. She never complained, never asked for more. At night, she returned to her corner of the barn and slept like someone afraid the world might change its mind. Cole spoke little, but he noticed everything. The way she startled at sudden noise. The way she froze when he stepped too close, then forced herself to relax. The scars on her hands weren't from work alone. He didn't ask. He understood silence as a language. Slowly, without discussion, things shifted. A pair of old boots appeared where her worn shoes had been. Soap and clean towels replaced the harsh lye she'd been using. When the nights grew colder, he fixed a small heater in the tack room and told her she could sleep there instead. He said it like it was no more important than repairing a gate. Mara accepted each thing with quiet gratitude, but something else was happening beneath her calm surface. For the first time in years, she wasn't trading herself for safety. No one touched her without permission. No one demanded smiles or obedience beyond the work she chose to do. The weight of constant vigilance began to ease, little by little, like a clenched fist finally loosening. One evening, as she cooked stew on the small stove Cole had set up, she began to hum without realizing it. The sound was soft, unsure, but it filled the room with something almost fragile. Cole paused in the doorway, surprised by the tightness in his chest. The ranch had been silent for so long that he'd forgotten what warmth sounded like. He left her alone, but later that night, he placed a chair near the stove. Not facing her, just nearby, an offering of company without expectation. Part 3. Winter announced itself without mercy. The first snow fell thick and fast, swallowing the fences and muting the world until the ranch felt cut off from everything that had ever hurt them. The work grew harder, the days shorter, but something inside the house had changed. Mara no longer counted the hours until sleep. She planned for mornings. She imagined them. Cole noticed it in the smallest ways. She laughed once, an unexpected sound that startled them both. She argued with him about how much salt belonged in the stew. She stood straighter now, as if the land itself had lent her some of its stubborn strength. And Cole, who had spent years believing his scars disqualified him from anything gentle, found himself repairing more than fences. He fixed a broken window, cleared out the spare bedroom he hadn't opened since the fire. Let the past breathe without choking on it. The night everything shifted came with a blizzard so fierce it rattled the walls. The power went out just after sunset, plunging the house into a darkness lit only by firelight. The wind howled like it was trying to tear the world apart. Mara sat at the table, hands wrapped around a mug she hadn't realized was shaking. "I hate storms," she said quietly, surprising herself by saying anything at all. Cole looked up from adding wood to the fire. "So do I." They sat in silence, the truth of that shared dislike settling between them. Finally, Cole stood and disappeared down the hall. When he returned, he held out a small, worn key. "It's for the house," he said. "All of it, not just where you sleep." Mara stared at the key like it might vanish. "Cole, you don't owe me," he said, firm but not unkind. "You never did." Something inside her broke open then, not fear, not shame, but grief for the girl she'd been when shelter always came with a price. Tears slid down her face unchecked. She took the key with trembling fingers, pressing it into her palm like proof she was real. That night, for the first time in her life, she slept in a bed without wondering what it would cost her. The weeks that followed felt almost unreal. Mara helped make the house a home, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. Curtains appeared at the windows. Bread baked on Sundays. She planted herbs by the kitchen door even though the ground was still cold, trusting spring would come eventually. Cole watched her do it all, a quiet awe settling in his chest. He had built the ranch to survive alone. Somehow, she had taught it how to live. One evening, as they stood on the porch watching the snow melt into mud, Mara finally asked the question she'd been holding back. "What happened to you?" Her voice was gentle, not demanding. Cole didn't answer right away. Then he rolled up his sleeve, revealing the edge of the scars that crossed his arm and disappeared beneath his shirt. "Fire," he said, Took my wife, took the house we were building. Left me with this land and no idea how to start again. Mara didn't look away. She stepped closer, not touching, just present. You did start again, she said. You just didn't know it yet. Spring came slow but sure. Grass pushed through the thawing earth. Calves were born. Mara laughed more. Cole spoke more. One morning, he handed her a folded piece of paper, ownership documents. Her name beside his. I want you here, he said simply. As long as you choose it. Mara looked out over the land, the scars, the beauty, the future. Once, she had traded herself for shelter. Now she chose something else entirely. I'm not going anywhere, she said. And in that choice, both of them finally came home.